Hey guys, and welcome to another Tier Wars where I look back at all the Rangers and rate them how they were in each of their seasons. Yellow is kind of the middle ground color of the group. Some Yellow Rangers I really enjoyed, others not so much because they were just mishandled or poorly executed. So first up is Trini, which unfortunately kind of gets the short end of the stick due to her, departure in the middle of season 2 for what they did in the very beginning of the series. Especially when they changed the Sentai, drastically. Most of the Yellow Rangers are guys. Not only did you have the first season ever to work on Power Rangers, so the writers didn't really know what to do. On top of it, really, Boy didn't really have a character past some very generic stuff, which was the main problem in G Rangers. So they really didn't have much to do with Trini. I think what it was is that, after the original pilot, because they had a different actress who played Trini, they recasted her, and I did really like that she was kind of the opposite of Billy. Billy was the one who was introverted, he was the geek, he didn't really know how to fight, didn't really know how to talk to most people, and was very awkward. She was very confident, she was smart like Billy, so she could help translate him, which I really liked about the character, and I wish they had kind of done that more. She was an excellent fighter, which was ironic. The three that did leave were like the best fighters of the team, but I also like that she was warm, fun, especially the clown episode. I think that was her breakout episode. We learned a little bit more about Trini's family, although I still will question, she has so many of these eccentric characters in her family, how come she's not rich? And she wasn't perfect. That's the thing I'm always afraid of with these type of characters, that they don't have any flaws. A lot of shows fall into that trap where it's you have to make them perfect for kids to enjoy them. And it's no. So overall, I'm gonna put Trini in a solid A, and for a first-time character, a very good start. Now, which brings us to Aisha, who has a lot to fill. Now, Aisha in a lot of ways is better than Trini because she was on the show much more longer, so she got a lot of more standalone episodes that could expand on her character, minus her departure, which was complete garbage. I also appreciated the writers just did not copy and paste Trini into Aisha. They felt very different, even though a lot of the footage is just the same footage used from Super Sentai, so a lot of things are going to be very similar. Aisha, average girl, and she knew how to fight, but she was no expert. And I like that they went in the more, I guess, because Family Matters was very popular at the time, they wanted to go in that type of direction of her personality, which I did enjoy. And I just wish she was used more. This is kind of the time where, while they did a decent job of Trini, this is kind of where, with the lack of the Super Sentai footage, because again, could not use anything from Dire Ranger and obviously Kaka Ranger, Aisha kind of just didn't know where to go throughout the seasons. Very well done character. Just near the end where she left is when it kind of just went down the hill. So I'm going to give her a B. She's up there, but not perfect. Now, Titus. Unfortunately, the majority of the Alien Rangers are abysmal because they just did not care about their characters. Now, when they were all introduced at the beginning, I thought they were okay, and the problem is just they didn't expand on it. They had so much footage they could have done. I know they're aliens, and it clashes with the Kaka Ranger footage, but they didn't try at all. And we got a basic background in the back of the boxes, but for characters in the show, they got nothing to do, and unfortunately, I have to put him in F. Now, with the poor departure of Aisha brings in Tanya. Now, of course, it's not Tanya's fault. For what they had to do to introduce her, because it had to be basically a crash course. Not only did we get introduced to Tanya, we had two Tanyas. We had the young Tanya, start getting used to her, and then all of a sudden we get switched over to the semi-adult / late high school Tanya. So she was kind of the fish out of water situation, kind of like I wish the Alien Rangers were. I hated that they kind of ignored the time jump, but obviously they didn't want to look at and deal with all the repercussions of the time jump, kind of like how later on in Dino Charge, where they had screwed up the whole time history, and they were like, okay, let's just throw it into a different universe so we can ignore what happened there. Like I said, she was kind of like in between Aisha and Trini. She's a little bit more assertive when she has to deal with situations, and they took those cues from the actual O-Ranger character. O-Ranger really did lack with the girls. They really didn't get that much screen time, which sucked. Tanya got a lot more to do. I would actually classify her higher than Aisha. I think the only thing that sucked is that she just really didn't get much to do in Turbo. I think Tanya as a character is a good solid B. So Ashley for Turbo Yellow, I mean, she's not bad, and she's the second best out of the introduction. Cassie and TJ really didn't get much to do. They were just basically a crash course of characters being introduced into the universe. Ashley at least had something set up. I mean, she's kind of a basic character, a step back, you know, compared to Tanya. They could have done a lot more with Ashley. Now, granted, her counterpart in Car Ranger was different. She was basically like Tanya in Zeo. She wasn't strong in Turbo and didn't get that many episodes in it. I'm going to give her a C. She wasn't bad, but she wasn't great. Now, the reason why I also include her in space is because I also want to address, has the character improved if they appear in more than one season? Of course, she did have her dumb, goofy episodes of In Space because they took some of the episodes from Mega Ranger and then they just did them. This was kind of like the era where, okay, we're going to do more of the Sentai episode plots and put them on our characters. And, you know, it's a hit and miss, and luckily Ashley did work with Mega Ranger's character footage, so it was okay. So we got that interesting Grandma Matchmaker episode, which was virtually an identical copy of the Sentai episode. Ashley had, you know, the relationship with Andros, and also she did get some decent standalone episodes, which I did enjoy, and overall, she was a much improved character compared to her earlier Turbo season. So I'm definitely going to give her a better grade of B. Now, Maya. This character I did enjoy because it's a very unique character compared to her Sentai counterpart. While Maya, because she was from a different planet, and that's how everything all started, she was able to talk to the Galactabees. But I wish they had used that more often because I always had hoped that she would help translate the book that Kendricks was working on. Now, she did get some okay episodes. I did like her episode where she was just eating all the food and they had that, you know, argument with Kendricks. I thought that was a fun episode and it did fit her character. She's an alien. She doesn't really know customs, so it's kind of like, hey, yeah, we all do this on our world and it's not a big deal. So I'm going to give her a C. I really wanted to give her a B, especially for her episode with the was it Lorax's Last Stand? That was my favorite episode. It's like another example of where they copied the Sentai episode and it worked for the character. I just wish they had given her more episodes like that to make her shine. Now, Kelsey. Now, I've said to her in the beginning, ooh, the actress was very, very rough. She didn't really know how to act, but you have to give it to her. She got better as she went, and I did like the character overall. She was a sports nut. She wanted to learn how to fight with Chad. I like that they kept that going throughout the time. And she did get some decent episodes. Her grandmother episode was probably her most famous one because she had to stand up to someone who was very rich and was trying to tell her what to do. Kelsey didn't get too much to do, and she is a very different character compared to Dino in Go-Go 5. He's a police officer, and he didn't really get that many episodes to do. He's kind of the middle child and mostly ignored. So she was a better character, but she wasn't really great. I wish she had got more focus episodes. So I have to give her a C. Now, Katie. Unfortunately, Katie. This is where it started getting like where, okay, since we cannot adapt any of the material from the Super Sentai because Time Yellow is completely different. Full storyline, which I enjoyed. He was funny, he was quirky, and don't get me wrong, I did like Katie's fun episode where she got traveled back in time. She had to deal with that guy, helped him. But other than that, Katie was the worst of the worst. And I never understood this. You went out of your way to give her super strength, even though Time Yellow did not have that ability in there. There was just some examples of where he held the door open. And I was like, well, that could just be from his, suit. It doesn't have to be a superpower. And they don't do anything with it, like compared to like Trip, where, he's an alien and, he can read people's mind or read emotions. It's like, why did you give someone this ability and virtually never use it or bring it up in any way? It was just dumb. So she's a D. Now, Taylor is kind of in the middle She was absolutely annoying in the beginning because, again, she's the one who hated the Red Ranger because Cole came in. He's completely, like, oblivious to everything, doesn't know what's going on, and he becomes the Red Ranger. And it's just like, what the hell's going on? I should be the Red Ranger. I should be in command because I'm the one who's been here the longest. And it's just your rigidity of, you know, being in the military is what screwed you, basically, because you didn't understand how to work with a team in a civilian setting. Now, she is pretty much identical to her Sentai counterpart. Virtually everything was taken word for word, job for job. In some ways, she actually had a better personality. She had the things here and there with, you know, in the background, like with Eric, because they were like, oh, we can give Taylor and Eric some sort of dialogue because, you know, they're kind of similar characters, military, hard asses. So I appreciate that from the character, and she did grow. So she understood why she was the second in command and not in command of the team like Cole was. So I'm going to give her a C. I would love to make her a B, but she just didn't get enough to do to warrant it. She kind of gets lost near the end of the show. Which brings us to Dustin. Now, I love Dustin. Hurricane Yellow is very different. He is the mature one, so he's different to Dustin. He is funny, but not the funny Dustin is. I think Dustin was a perfect balance of what the show should have been. I think he should have been just the goofy character versus all the characters trying to be dumb every single time. He should have been the only one, while the other one should have been more like Tori, for example, where she was in the middle of the road where, yeah, she'll say a joke here and there, while Shane and everyone else would cross into that direction of Dustin. It's like, no, Dustin has to be the idiot. He should be the funny one cracking jokes. And I did like that he was the one who was like, out of everyone, he was the one who was paying attention to Cam because he's the only one who really cared about the Power Ranger powers, while everyone was like, what is this? We got this thing or watch on our arm. What are we supposed to do? Ninja what? Ranger what? He grew as a character just like the other ones. He became, you know, a ninja master, a teacher for the school. He still had his funniness, and I did like that progression. I just wish he had a little bit more because, unfortunately, like I said, his counterpart is different, so they couldn't really adapt a lot of the episodes. But for what they gave him, he's a solid B. Kira, I did really enjoy. Honestly, besides Tommy, I would honestly put her as the second best character. I think she was, what I loved the most about the DT theme was what MMPR lacked. Not everyone would be working with each other. They're completely different people from different universes, like she said. The geek, the jock, they would never cooperate with each other. They would never see each other. It's just this bizarre circumstance where they were forcibly put together and they had to work together. And she grew with them because she understood like what was missing in her life. Because she was always alone. She liked her music, but she didn't really talk to much people. And she got a pretty decent amount of episodes. She was similar to her counterpart, not as goofy, obviously. She was much more serious. And she grounded a lot of the episodes. If she wasn't as good as she was in the show, Trent would have suffered. Trent's character didn't have a lot of footage they could use. Abare Killer was a completely different character, no relationship to Yellow in any way. So with Kira, Trent became a character and she saved him. And she acted like how we would have acted if like we found out Trent was the bad guy. We would not trust him. Or like, are you serious? You hid this from us again? She immediately like reacted like a real person. And I think that's what I think everyone loved about DT overall. I'm going to give her an A. She was a really excellent character. Now Z, I liked her, but she got really nothing to do. And it sucks because I think the problem was her counterpart. This is again where they were going, okay, we're going to kind of copy the Sentai. But Jasmine, because they gave her her ability to bridge, and then Z didn't really have anything. And then there were a lot of plot lines that they didn't really have, they could do. Like the Succubus plot line, Deca Ranger couldn't do that. So they had the Sam stuff, but because they screwed Sam up in the show, Z got screwed out of like a good arc. Imagine if Sam was a normal character in S.P.D. and he was taken from back in time. That would have elevated Z because Z could have taught him. Like, yeah, you're from the future, so like what happened? What was going on? And it would have been kind of a cool dynamic if you brought someone from the future, but he lost his memory, for example, to keep that whole stuff a mystery. And it would have been cool to, like, if Z, like, you know, as she kind of mentored Sam as a child and now as an adult, it would have been interesting to see her help Sam out, like regaining his memory, learning things from his, you know, his past or his future. And obviously it would have been kind of cool if they had done the whole don't meet your past self with your future self. And it would have been funny if Z always had to, like, make sure to him never see his past self and try to keep them at bay in, like, one particular episode. But because none of that happened, of course she had her thing with Jack, but they didn't really do anything with Jack after a certain bit, because Jack became his own character. They kind of separated in that regard, especially near the end of the season. Like, Z's not a bad character, but she got wasted pretty much like Katie, unfortunately. So I'm going to give her a D. Now, Chip, much like Dustin, is a conundrum. Different to his counterpart. His counterpart in Maji Ranger series, they didn't adapt most of any of his stories except for the vampire stuff. That was the only thing Chip took from his counterpart. He wasn't as, like, crazy as Dustin. So I was like, okay, he's not copying Dustin, and he was funny in the right moments here and there. I think it would have been cool to follow him, especially in several episodes where maybe you could have had it where he hides some of his emotions behind his stupidity. And it would have been kind of cool to either have him team up with Gingy, Madison. So we have two of the weaker characters join up together and do episodes together every so often. I know he had the thing with Vita, but again, that kind of just got thrown out and disappeared out of nowhere. It's like it just went nowhere. Overall, I like Chip, but he didn't really get much to do. So I'm going to put him in D. Now, Ronnie. Everyone knows how I feel about this character. She was different compared to many other characters. You know, race car driver, kind of famous. She's a pilot. She can, you know, deal with a lot of the equipment. So it was cool overall. But because she had shared nothing with her counterpart, absolutely abysmal. And I haven't seen someone so horrible since, like, MMPR. Because usually the lowest I will give people is a D. But because they just gave her nothing, she's going to get an F. Lily. I would classify her as obviously the mother role, but I think she's more than just that. I think she's a mixture of, I would say, Kira and Trini combined together. But she didn't get too much to do. Not horrible. I mean, I think she was the voice of reason, because you had Casey, who's on the extreme end of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm new to this. Then you have Theo, who's excellent at his, you know, being Pai Shua. Trainee, learning everything, and they clash all the time. Lily's the one who's in between. The problem is, because she's pretty different from her Sentai counterpart, and it was kind of the show where they were, like, in the motions of just whatever, because that was where Disney initially wanted the show to be canceled after that season, so they didn't really know what to do with it. Unfortunately, I'm going to put her in D. Now, Summer. Very excellent character. Much like Kira. They didn't obviously copy the whole, like, Kira Trent dynamic. Obviously, he was after his sister, and that was the main driving force of Dylan. But Summer's the one who convinced him, look, stop being a dick. Everyone needs you. I don't give a crap that you're half cyborg. That's the reason. I think it's the sole reason why Dylan even joined the team, was because Summer was basically, you know, trusting him. So I really like that character. She was a solid character. I think the only thing that you can complain about is that her backstory episode sucked, and it was the one that had the two-parter. Like, I did like the two-parter because it was kind of like the only time where someone actually dies in the show and they deal with it. It was so bizarre because you had all these weird situations where she was left out in the desert. And I was like, that would never happen in this type of situation. It's so ridiculous. It was because the writers were stuck with what they could do. I get it from that perspective, from the writer's point of view. Look, we don't have a lot of money. They wanted to do this big bombastic season with nothing. And they kind of were like, well, we'll just do this to get her to do this. And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. So that's like the reason why usually people hate Ranger Yellow. Solid B. But couldn't reach A because those weaker episodes, and because so she kind of gets lost in the middle of the season until the end where they really need her with obviously Dylan's sister. Now, Samurai Yellow, this is kind of hard because everyone in Samurai was kind of like It's either I must not fail, memes everywhere, or Emily be like, I'm just a copy of my Sentai counterpart. I mean, down to freaking lines, they would copy everything. Like, the character in the basics of sense is fine, but the issue is she didn't really get anything to do because a lot of the material from Shinkenger was not used, even though they copied it virtually identically. They couldn't copy the characters identically. You have these weird things that are like, she feels Japanese, but she's obviously not Japanese. She's obviously American in that sense. And it's just like, there's a disconnect between her background and who she is. It just wouldn't flow like that. I mean, she got that one episode with Bulk and Skull, and I did appreciate that episode. It was funny, it was unique, it was original, it was nothing from Shinkenger. But everything past that, horrible. I thought maybe they would have done something with Samurai Gold with her, something with Antonio, but like nothing, absolutely nothing. Emily got just nothing to do, so I'm just gonna give her a D. I don't want to give her an F. She was not abysmal, but she's borderline there on F. Now Gia, I'm only going to count her once because her character does not change at all. She's similar to her counterpart from Gokaiger, but not as stiff. And I know Gokai Yellow, she's a dick, but then she becomes fun at the end, so she grows over time, so she's fine. If I wanted to make an argument, I would say she's the second best of the Megaforce kids, only because she had the most like developed characterization of herself. She was trying to be Jen, but just having her hard ass side, but not her warm side. That's the problem when it comes to characters. If you're gonna make a hard ass character, you gotta have a warm side, or one episode that has them either be goofy or just be fun. Just like how in Shinkenger, Shinken Red was a dick. He was horrible to the team initially because, again, the secret, and he's the Lord. There's levels of, you know, how everyone should act, and so he had to learn how to be a regular person. So there were episodes where he was completely stupid. When he was turned into the Neko Cat, he learned to lighten up. Gia, unfortunately, she just had one thing, and that's all she did. She was perfect in school, she was a hard ass, she was a good fighter, and she just toyed around with Jake. And then we got a payoff at the end of Super Mega Force. Oh, she kisses him on the cheek and they're gonna start dating, and it's just like, yeah, where did that evolution, progress of that development happen? It's whatever. I don't want to give her an F, but I'm gonna give her a D. Ninja Steel Yellow, Calvin. What the hell do you say about him? He likes his car, and he likes Haley, and he likes her dog. That's really it. He's trying so hard to be Chip or Dustin, and that's all he really gets. He's nothing like his counterpart. Well, he gets one episode I can recall, the bike one. And usually I don't count those because you know why? Every Ranger in the beginning of the season gets their one episode. If you get like 3 or 4 episodes in a season, you're an okay character, because usually that means the writers care about you enough to develop you. If you get like 2 and you're just usually side characters, in some cases he's side character to a dog, you're really horrible. And Calvin, I don't want to do this to you, but I'm going to give you a freaking F. Which brings us to our final Yellow Ranger from Beast Morphers, Zoe. If I'm remembering correctly, we were following her as pretty much at the beginning of the show. She was kind of like the one that we kind of like, yeah, because she was kind of thrown in at the last minute. Well, like, yeah, okay, Devin, yeah, he's the one who barged in because he was like, oh, I shouldn't be here, but I want to know about the Power Rangers. I want to know what my father's doing. And he kind of got stumbled into the situation. Zoe was like, I work here. I don't know what's going on. And then, of course, she had her with the Gold Ranger. Definitely different compared to his counterpart because they didn't adapt his footage at all. Now, Zoe's counterpart, they are different. In Go Busters, she's more serious. I would say she's kind of a cross between Lily and Ashley. I think the only problem is that like she was on the borderline of like not used and used at the same time. Like I said, she was a connecting everyone together. So I don't want to say she's like a bad character. It's like I just wish she got a little bit more to do. So I'm gonna give her a solid C. Like the reason why MMPR and Dino Thunder worked so well is because of how perfect the casting was and how well the actors worked together. Because if you had to ask someone with no nostalgia goggles at all, if I said, what season would you want to come back, wholeheartedly pick MMPR Season 1, not the later seasons, and Dino Thunder. I would also argue Time Force 2. Those 3 seasons were lightning in a bottle. Where, looking back at Trini, and it's like, I really had wished she had stayed on the show a little bit more. The actors had their reasons and the rights to leave the show. I'm not even complaining about that. But for the character's sake, I really wish Trini was on the show more often. She was scripted to appear in Turbo, for example, during the power transfer in an early draft, but it obviously didn't go through, and then we just never got a chance to see her again in any of the later seasons. Overall, the Yellow Rangers are more of the solid color that I've gone through. You're not as crazy as like Green Rangers, where it's like the extremes. I really love you, or I really hate you, because you just either you're oversaturated in the show, Tommy, or you just got nothing to do. Jake, what do you guys personally think? What are your favorite Rangers? You know, leave a comment below, and if you have a suggestion or a topic you'd like me to cover, leave a comment below as well, and I may use it next time.